All right.
Solve the linear inequalities.
All right.
Oh, 1.2.
Okay. All right, so this is going to be a lot like yesterday, but here's the difference today too, is that I'm going to show you a way that's not in your book quite yet to write your answer. So you're going to kind of be able to check your answers in the back, but then you won't be able to check the new way that I'm going to show you to write the inequalities. But it's really, really important because we're going to use it from here on out. So let's just jump in. What's an inequality?
Something that's not equal.
Okay, but what is it?
Inequality.
What? Okay.
I don't know. Honestly, I forgot.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to get to. That's the greater than or less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Okay? And those are inequalities. So we're looking, let's see. What does the line under them mean? Or equal to, which means it includes that number, right? So sometimes we'll say that these are inclusive, which would mean the first ones are what? Exclusive. Inclusive meaning they include the number that it starts at, and exclusive meaning it does not include the number. So if I'm talking about algebraically solving an inequality, and we'll do something easy. What would you do? Subtract 2. The rules are exactly the same as if there was an equal sign there, with one exception. When do they flip?
It'll switch it'll like switch, you know what I mean?
Right. There you go. That's exactly right. All right, less than 3. So all the rules are the same. Same solving rules. But when you multiply or divide, I'm over in that room, by a negative, but when you multiply or divide by a negative, you flip the sign. So, for example, if I had negative 3x is greater than or equal to 21. Because I would have to divide by negative 3,
Yes.
I don't know. They just, I have a bunch of them and none of them, I use them so much I just wear them out, I think. Negative 7. Right? See how that inequality sign flipped?
Yes.
Everybody okay with that? All right. Before we do any more complicated ones, let me show you how I want you to write your answer, okay? I want to teach you something called interval notation. This will serve you well from henceforth in math. They do later on. I just like to do it now because it makes sense to do it now. If you do it now, it just ingrains in your brain. Thank you. Appreciate that, y'all. What was the answer to that? Greater than or equal to negative 3?
-7.
Less than or greater than? Less than.
Wait, but the equal from you.
Or equal to?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's think about this on a number line for just a minute. Yeah, this is taking it way back. So you probably initially learned number line. Then you learn inequality signs. Now you're going to learn interval notation. They're all different ways of doing the exact same thing. They just get slightly more sophisticated as you move up the little bracket there. All right, if I were to graph this on a number line, what would it look like? What goes on 7? It's a filled in dot. That's correct. A thick dot? Okay. Thick dot. Very thick, very thick.
You like very thick stuff.
All right. Thick dot on -7. I've never heard that before. I like it. All right. Thick dot on -7. Then it goes which way? Left or right?
Oh,
Left.
I hear both. Which ways? Less than goes to the left. Less than to the left.
wait, but it's
Right?
actually greater than that.
X is less than -7. So -7 is going to be bigger than, right.
It opens up where?
Or do you, yeah, whichever way.
As long as the variable's on the left side. Don't get confused, like if I wrote this this way, it's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? But you got to start with variable, if you look at the way that, yeah.
It discombobulated my brain.
So be very careful. Just remember the alligator mouth always eats the bigger number. Should you get confused.
Which way it goes on the number.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of neat.
Always start with the variable first, and it'll help you. Then it goes, if you start with the variable first, then the arrow goes the way that this arrow is pointing. Okay? All right. Let's say that I told you all the way this way is positive infinity. Okay? Have y'all seen the infinity sign before?
Yes.
Okay. Y'all were looking at me quite confused. Which would mean all the way this way is negative infinity. So what interval notation is exactly what it sounds like. It's a way to write an interval of numbers, okay? A range of numbers. So I want to describe this, and we always, in interval notation, always go from smallest to biggest.
How do we know there was a thick dot?
Because of the line under
Because it wasn't a line, it was
an
non-thick
open,
dot.
yeah, a thin dot.
Oh, it would have been like that.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to describe the set of numbers x is less than or equal to -7 from smallest to biggest. So I want you to think for just a minute. What is the absolute smallest value that x can be if it's less than or equal to -7? Negative infinity, right? It can be anything smaller. So the smallest it can be is negative infinity. Then it goes up, 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 up until it hits what? -7. So I'm going to do a comma and put -7. This is my interval of numbers. Okay, my interval is from negative infinity to -7. But now I have to take it a little step further because I need to be able to indicate if it's inclusive or exclusive. Okay, for inclusive numbers, I use a bracket. Inclusive, which inclusive, remember, is going to be the line under it or a thick dot, right? Those are going to be brackets in interval notation. Exclusive, which would be no line under it or a thin dot, those are going to be parentheses. So let me ask you a question. Let's look at the first value, the negative infinity. Can you ever be infinity or negative infinity? No, that's a conceptual value, right? So every infinity is always going to have a parenthesis on it. Because you can't actually be infinity. It's a conceptual number. So, yes. Why? Why would it have a bracket?
Because it's inclusive.
It's an inclusive value. Okay? So it includes 7, that's why I put a bracket. So this is exactly the same as this.
So
That is something else.
doesn't matter which way it
What do you mean?
Like, would you prefer to write it with?
Interval, yes, I want everything interval notation. Because we're going to get to something very, very soon, our domain and range, and all we will use is interval
So
notation.
basically, like after we get done after we figure it out, then we can change it on our homework to
Yes. You won't have to graph it on a number line. That was just me showing you. You will just solve and write an interval notation.
There's always a parenthesis.
Yeah, you might need to getting started. Yes.
So I could just give it.
Whatever the variable is,
Yeah.
it would be like, the way it's describing it would be negative or positive, like it's pointing for the infinity sign.
Yes, yes.
And then if that, the less than sign had a line under it, the 7 would be a
Parenthesis, correct. Somebody had a question over here.
Oh, all right.
We're going to do several more. We're going to do lots more. Not just one. Don't get all stressed out about one. Honors kids are bad about that. I'll show one example. Oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to do this. Just wait. I'm going to show you more. We're going to do plenty more. All right, let's do another one. And we're starting out easy. We're not solving anything hard yet because right now I'm focusing on interval notation and then we'll put everything together, okay? So y'all just stay with me a minute. I don't know about easier. I mean, it'll get easier as you do it. You'll be able to do this in your sleep soon. Like it's interval notation's a piece of cake once you get used to it. Let's say I had 4x minus 3 is less than 5y plus 2. I want to solve it and write the solution in interval notation. Tell me what to do. The solving part should be easy peasy for you. Oh, I didn't mean to put two different variables, y'all.
I was about to say, what if I
Sorry.
So 5x.
Yeah, that's a 5x. Yeah, just make them the same variable. Which one are you moving? Are you moving the 4 or are you moving the 5?
Do the 5.
Move the 5?
Yeah. Do the 5. You want the x on the left side.
Either one's fine. If you move the 5, you're going to end up with a negative. You're going to end up having to flip an inequality sign. If you move the 4, you're going to end up having to switch your inequality around. So either one's equally the same amount of work. I'm in the habit of moving the smaller one because that's what I'm in the habit of doing. I've always moved the smaller one to stay as positive as I can all the time. So I would probably do this. It's not wrong, however, if you moved the 5 and had negative x minus 3 equals 2. I'm going to move the 2 now. And now I'm going to flip this around so it's a little bit easier for me to see which way. Remember that alligator mouth has still got to eat the same value. It's still got to eat the x. So this is actually a greater than problem. Okay? So, if I think about it on a number line, and you may have to put it on a number line to visually see it to start with before you can really get into interval notation good. If you don't have to, that's fine too. If you think about the number line, this is negative 5. Is it a thick or a thin dot?
Yeah.
Greater than goes which way?
Right.
Luke, you have officially rewritten something in math class. That's pretty cool. All right, so smallest to biggest, the interval of numbers that it can be. What is the absolute smallest value that x can be? Negative 5. And then it goes up to what?
Infinity.
Infinity. Infinities always get exclusive parentheses. And the negative 5, should it be a bracket or a parenthesis?
Parentheses. And parentheses exclusive.
Parenthesis because it's not bubbled in. It's not filled in. It doesn't include 5.
Not 3.
Right, it's not thick. Does that make sense?
Wait, since x is greater than negative 5, can't small can be negative 4?
Well, but it could be like negative 4.9999999. You see what I'm saying? It can get as close to, because we're not talking about just integers. Yeah.
Why would you write it like that?
Did you say why negative 5 is
Like, it can't be negative.
Smallest, it always goes smallest to biggest.
I don't
So negative 5 to infinity.
understand that. Like, it can't be negative 5.
That's why it's a parenthesis. The parenthesis is saying it can't be negative 5, but it can be right up close to it. As close as you can get, but it can't actually be negative 5. Other questions so far? Yeah. Yes. It literally looks just like the number line. If you can remember the parenthesis and the bracket part, I could put a parenthesis here. This is infinity. It goes from -5 to infinity.
So then we're gonna have to learn how to like write it from this back to.
It always goes smallest to biggest.
No, I'm talking about like from -5, comma, infinity back to x is greater than -5.
You could combine. We're going to combine some in a minute. I think that's what you're getting at. What if? Yeah.
Could you have an example for like
Yeah.
Give us a hard one.
Do us a
Give us
hard.
one.
Yeah, give us a hard one. Yeah, let's make it, give us 2x.
Make it difficult.
But like, big better numbers. Well, we don't know how to do it 2 different ways.
Does the microphone pick up all of this?
I got you.
Yeah, I think so. Depending on
Hey, man.
I want you to solve and write the solution in interval notation. Mark, set, go. I'm going to pause the video. You may have done this a different way. I see 2 ways of starting this problem. You could split up the fraction into 2 different fractions if you wanted to and go from there. Or you could multiply both sides by 6, which would essentially be the same thing as cross multiplying here. I would start this probably by multiplying by 6. So that I have -24x is less than or equal to 5x plus 58. If I then move the 5x over, I get negative, let me write it for you here, -29x less than or equal to 58. But because I'm dividing by a negative, that's exactly right. So now x is going to be greater than or equal to -2.
So that also determines which side you write it in.
So if you need the number line, yep, thick
And then
dot
going to the right.
to the right.
So it'd be bracket -2, comma, infinity sign, parentheses.
That is exactly right.
So it's greater to the right, less than.
Now, your equations won't get much worse than that, but I cannot teach you, this will not be on your homework tonight, but I can't teach you interval notation without showing you how to do some other things in there because I would feel bad if, well,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm going to go ahead and show you because it's just better just to show you now. And I'm surprised nobody's asked me. Sometimes when you solve inequalities, if you think back to your compound inequalities you had, remember you had ones that maybe looked like, no, we'll do some more later. I just want to show you. Those are called and inequalities, and then you had some that were ors. I used to call them chicken wings when I taught Algebra 1. They looked like they went off and anyway. And so graphed, this looks something like this. This would be an open, this would be a closed, and it's in between. So if you were to write that in interval notation, that should be easy for you, I think. What would it be? What's the smallest value that x can be here? -5 up to 2. This would be a, and this would be a, right. But then other times, you might have multiple inequalities that you want to combine. Like maybe you say that, well, I want x to be smaller than 5, or it can be greater than or equal to 2. So now there's 2 parts. Okay? We can join inequalities together. We can smush them together, different interval notations.
The smallest would be infinity, negative infinity, and the biggest would be infinity, right?
Well, but you can't include that in between. You see all this in the middle? That's not included in your inequality. That's left out. So what we do is we write the separate inequalities, okay? So let's think about it. What's the smallest x can be on the green number line? Negative infinity. Right? Because it's going off this way. Okay? But when it gets to negative 5,
Is that a U or
it stops. It's a u. And it stops with a parenthesis, right? It doesn't pick back up until where? 2. So what I do is I put a U. That U stands for union, meaning join them together. Pick back up at 2 with a bracket, and then go to what? Infinity.
So then if you saw that, you could see that infinity, so you join together.
Well, not necessarily because it's infinity, but because it's going off either direction as the infinity's there. But you join them because they both make up the one solution. Yeah.
So basically, with that, you could read them separately, but then just put a new
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, again.